tonight's all about sharing the lived experiences of hybrid closed loop, where people living with diabetes or have a connection to diabetes with maybe parents or carers, but we're giving a sort of lived experience perspective tonight, not a medical perspective. And we always say that please go speak to your diabetes team should you want to learn more about certain things, or you're going to change your management or care. Always speak to your diabetes team. Tonight is about just learning a bit more about hybrid closed loop, because we can see it's very in at the moment, and tonight hopefully we're going to have different representations of different hybrid closed loop to share their experiences, their lived experiences, their own experiences, and hopefully let you guys take something away from it, including Wendy. Fantastic Wendy has come on tonight and we'll be sharing her perspectives along the way, and may have some thoughts, but also the perspective of someone who is using insulin injections. And I think we all agree, aren't we, guys, Laura, Mo, and the rest of the guys, is that first and foremost, it's important that we have this chat to raise awareness. It's good to share experiences, and there's no one fit rule, isn't it? It's whatever works for you. And tonight, hopefully, the idea is to raise a bit of awareness about the different HCLs.
Definitely.
Brilliant. So what we'll do is we'll kick off. I don't know, with all the tech going off now, I don't know whether GBDoc info account will be tweeting the questions out as well. I'm not too sure. Laura, is that still the plan, or is that not going to happen now? I'm not too sure what if things have changed because of the lovely tech issues.
I'll try my hardest.
No worries. So Laura will send out some questions as well. We'll see how many we get through over the next hour. So first question, and we can go around, and I think we've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 speakers on the panel, including 2 co-hosts and myself. There's 2 more available spots. If you're trying to get on but you can't get on, please let us know, or you can tweet along on here or on the GBDoc account. They'll be sending questions, so please get involved either way, and Mo will read out some of them from the GBDoc account. So brilliant. So first question, isn't it, is what is your name, your connection to diabetes, how long have you been living with diabetes, and what hybrid closed loop system do you use, and how long have you been using it? This is sort of a really quick, brief question because I want to make sure that we get round everyone tonight. So what's your name, connection to diabetes, how long have you been living with diabetes, what is your hybrid closed loop system, and how long have you been using it? So let's start with Mo.
Lovely stuff. Thank you very much, Tom. Hello, everybody. My name is Mo. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I have been for about 23 years. It's in the mid-20s. I've sort of lost track and lost count. I'm on type 1 diabetic, and I have been for about 23 years, 6 months. I think it is. It's in the mid-20s. I've sort of lost.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. Tony, what about you, my friend?
Hello, I'm Tony. I've been type 1 for 45 years. I was still known as 10. I'm on T-Slim, Dexcom G6 T-Slim with Control IQ, and I've been doing that for about a year now. I'm the part previous to that, so yeah, so that's mine.
Brilliant. Let's go Laura, then David, then Mark, and then we'll invite the rest of the speakers. So Laura first, and David and Mark.
Yeah, hi, I'm Laura.
Hey.
Type 1 for 24 years. I'm with Mo. You get past the 20-year mark and it just all rolls into one. And I am T-Slim with Dexcom G6 Control IQ. And I'm just reaching the 5-week mark. I'm quite a newbie to the HCL world. So yeah, 5 weeks.
Absolutely amazing, fantastic. It's lovely to see, and it'll be interesting to hear your thoughts tonight. David, hello.
Hi there, so I'm David. I'm on T-Slim with G7 and Control IQ. I was on G6 but switched over to the G7. And I was an early adapter of hybrid closed loop. I was on Medtronic previously, but then went full hybrid with T-Slim. So yeah.
Brilliant, amazing. Mark, then Sean.
Well, I'm Mark. I've been diabetic for 35 years. The only reason I remember it is because of because I got to watch the Super Bowl in the hospital, so I know remember and the year, so I can work it out. I'm only on T-Slim. I could do basal IQ if I could get, if I had G6s, but I'm one of those too good diabetics that can never get the stuff and have to fight 10 years even for a pump. It's so annoying. Don't get me started. as you probably know, Tom.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts tonight alongside the other guys. We're definitely representing T-Slim tonight, so big up T-Slim there. Sean, what about you, my friend?
Well, yeah, I've been type 1 for 35 years as well, actually. I think I'm the black sheep of the group, because I DIY loop and have been doing now for about 6-7 years.
Brilliant, amazing. It'd be interesting to add some of your perspectives tonight into the chat. Ellie, and then coming to Alex after Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I've been diabetic for 21 years, and I am on the CAM APS FX with the Ipsomed pump. I've been on that for a year, but I was actually on the original trials for the CAM APS, and so I've been using CAM APS since I was 11.
Yeah. No, brilliant. And it was something when I was looking at pumps to potentially go into pumps, I was looking at Omnipod 5 or Ipsomed, and I know Sarah has Ipsomed as well, but we'll come to Sarah in a second. Thank you, Ellie. Alex?
Hello, I'm Alex. I've been type 1 since 1999. I've been pumping since 2003 or 4, can't remember exactly. And I'm a Medtronic girl. I've always been using a Medtronic pump, and I'm looking with the Medtronic 780G and the Guardian 4, and I've been doing that for just over 2 years. Yeah.
Super. Sarah, let's come to you, and then we'll finish with Wendy on this last question.
So I'm Sarah. I've had type 1 diabetes for 42 years. I've been on Cambridge APS for a year and probably about a year and a half now. Before that, I was doing DIY. I also have an 18-year-old son who's got type 1, and he's using Cambridge APF and Dexcom as well.
Brilliant, fantastic. Can I just ask, Mo, what did you say you were using, my friend, again?
The Omnipod 5.
There we go. I was like, have we got Omnipod 5 representation? We do. So we've got T-Slim, Omnipod 5, DIY, we've got Ipso, Medtronic, T-Slim, fantastic. And let's not forget, Wendy, thank you for joining us tonight. Do you want to let us know a little bit about you, your name, your connection to diabetes, how long you've been living with diabetes, and what sort of insulin therapies do you use to manage your diabetes?
Thank you. I'm Wendy. I was diagnosed with LADA type 1 just over 4 years ago now. I have a Libra 2, and I use Nova Echo pens. And
yes,
my control is pretty good, and I would be at the bottom of the list when it came to dishing out pumps anyway, but I'm not really that bothered. I'm quite happy where I am.
Yeah. I think it comes to me is that choice and availability, isn't it? Is giving people that choice of what they want to hopefully use to manage the diabetes. I think that's hopefully the long-term vision here, is that people, when diagnosing, can say, what would you prefer? Do you want this or this? And you have that choice. And if that's something that you are happy with at this stage, then great. And maybe in the future, who knows? But it's your diabetes, isn't it? You have that choice and that rightful choice.
As we've seen tonight, tech is not always perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, guys. Amazing. And I think that's like over like 200-300 lived experiences, let alone in the speaker panel. Please, guys, if you want to tweet along, please do. Is there any comments already coming through, Mo, on the account? I'm not too sure. Tech-wise, I'm struggling to keep up with things tonight.
Drowning in a category. I don't think so far.
No problem.
Also shout
That is
when she sees me.
That's great.
I've just put the tweet out. I've just figured out how to do it while staying on the chat.
Teamwork. So
Yeah.
let's crack on with question 2. I'm going to open this up to everyone, and maybe Mo can help me sort of facilitate this one. So what is the biggest advantage and disadvantage of the hybrid closed loop system that you use for you? So anyone want to crack on and start that? And then just chip in if someone says a comment and you want to add to it or ask a question. Or so for the next couple of minutes, what is the biggest advantage and disadvantage of the hybrid closed loop system that you use? So you've told us what you're using. So what are the advantages and disadvantages for you?
So I'm with Medtronic, but I think it is pretty common amongst all HCL systems is sleep. Being able to sleep at night. Not being, woken up by hypo or hyper because somehow the loop is looking after yourself. I've been looking for 2 years. That's the only time I have floodlights is during sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm extremely grateful just for that, because at least I can tackle the day and everything that diabetes threw at me because I'm rested. Anyone care to add?
I think absolutely. It's the one thing that going onto hybrid closed loop has really been. I use the word life-saving. But it sometimes kind of could be. It's that waking up of the morning and having a look at my line and knowing that the T-Slims just kind of looked after stuff overnight. And it's just, it is particularly, I went through a phase when I was in a previous job when I was working away. Things just kind of looked after stuff. And I'd go down to London for the week. It was sometimes quite, making me incredibly anxious about my safety, because you would close your eyes and then, anything could happen. But all that's now, it's such a blessing to be able to kind of go in about hours without worrying about waking up in pulls of sweat, shaking like I almost said something rude, shaking like a leaf. Ditto with Alex there.
I was going to say exactly the same with the sleep thing. Previously, if you had high sugar, you would have to wake up every hour, 2 hours to obviously check and make sure you do a correction if needs to be. With my hybrid closed loop, I can be 14, 15 and wake up with my sugars being in range, so I don't have to wake up and keep checking constantly. It's always fixing its own problems. But yeah, there are cons with them, but at the moment, I'll talk about that later.
I agree. And the other huge bonus that I have with HCL is because it's keeping me in such a tight range. My hypo-awareness has come back. I haven't had hypo-awareness since I was 9 years old, and I'm now 29.
Wow.
And it's come back in the last 6 months. And that's
remarkable.
Amazing. Yeah. And that's what HCL has done for me. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Is anyone else that wanted to add on to that question? We've got some common themes coming through. Sleep, maybe not over worrying overnight as maybe once were, and then things like that of getting hyper awareness back for you, which is fantastic. Mark?
I mean, the one thing I seriously would love a hybrid closed loop to get a full night's sleep, because regularly I'm up about 2 till 4. Got something on Instagram about most diabetes fight more battles before 5 a.m. than anybody else, and I say, yeah, mine are normally 2 till 4. And the other one I would love to have a hybrid closed loop for is because I'm trying to lose weight as one of the type 1 obese, which seems to get left ignored, is after I've been to the gym, I hypo a lot. Not dangerous, I sort them, but that's extra calories that I'm having to then burn up, which I could do without having to burn. The only way I'm getting around it now is to run a lot higher, because my insulin resistance it drops like a stone after the gym, and it's just getting used to that from when I've been insulin like resistance like concrete.
Yeah, and it's interesting point. And let's bring Wendy into this, and then we've got Sean and Laura as well. Is for me, yeah, when going to the gym or exercise, potentially you may, or I found potentially the risk of getting low. Can I just ask, can everyone just mute their mics when not speaking, because there's quite a bit of feedback coming back? That's amazing. You're all wonderful. Yeah, so basically when I'm at a gym and stuff or doing exercise, I do find that say once you've given that injection, Wendy, that's it, isn't it? And unless you obviously take on more carbs on board and stuff like that, whereas obviously hyperclosed loop can help. It doesn't like stop every episode. You can still get low. You can still get low during exercise and sports and things. But what's your thought there, Wendy, with exercise and stuff, and you're bringing it into hybrid closed loop? Is that something you would like in terms of exercise and sport?
I think for me, so I walk sort of an hour and a half, 2 hours every day with the dog. I swim twice a week, and I do Pilates. So I do a variety of exercises. If it's walking, I'm fine for a good hour.
Mm-hmm.
But what I tend to do is I then drip feed. So I'll take out a bag of squashums, and after 3/4 of an hour, I'll have a squashum, and it's enough to stop me dropping low. When I'm swimming, I'll do 10 lengths, and then I'll have a squashum. I know somebody else who has a weak squash, but with sugar in.
Yep.
At the end of her lane, so she just has a little bit when she's swimming, just periodically, and it just
helps.
Stops that drop. But if I know I've got a particularly active day, and at the weekend we were doing some clearing in the garden, so if I'm doing something that I know is going to be active all day on top of that, then I will cut my ratios down at breakfast. So I'll have whatever I'd normally have for breakfast, but I'll have a unit less or half a unit less of insulin.
No, absolutely.
And then it just gives you that little bit of a cushion there without feeling as though you've got to load up on carbs to balance what you're doing. And for me, that seems to work. It certainly seems to work for now. I mean, I'm not saying it's perfect, and sometimes I get out swimming pool and think I'll just sit here for a minute, but a lot of the time, that's enough just to keep me sort of within an acceptable range, so I can drive home afterwards.
And be 5 to drive.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I sometimes message my husband and say, I'm just sitting in the car for a minute. But generally speaking, I've sort of got that in a system that works for me. And like we say, it's all about what works for us, isn't it? It's what works for you as an individual. And for me, that seems to do the job.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Was anyone that wanted to add on to that? Sean, I saw your hand, and also Laura before on that final part of the question before we look at the next one.
I was just going to say, Tom, that what everybody said about sleeping well and that sort of thing. I mean, with my diabetes, I basically mess it up. If I left it to the system, it'd be fine. But when I get involved, it messes it up. So the fact is that I wake up pretty much in range at breakfast pretty much every day. If I can keep sort of in range until dinner by having a fairly low breakfast, then with the help of the pump, that's midnight until midday. With the hybrid closed loop system, that it's midnight till midday where I'm in range, so I'm already 50%. So even if I met up the rest of the day, it gives you a really good basis for your numbers and for your stats and for your HbA1cs, if everybody's sort of interested in those. So that's really good. And then just to go on to what Wendy said, it's just the flexibility of getting things. If you know you're going to have a day that's not your usual day, then the ability to change things quite simply so that you can tell it it's going to be a more active day or a less active day or whatever. Yeah. That's the other benefit for me.
No, that's absolutely right. Thank you so much. Laura, coming to you.
Can I be like the negative Nelly and speak about?
It's all a healthy conversation here. Go for it.
I mean, I'm relatively new, five weeks in, something like that. And I am an obsessive person. I latch on to something and I get obsessed with it. And I think having all of that data so readily available now, it messes with you a little bit. In my type of personality, I think it can be a bit data overload.
Is it in a sense of that if you see you're potentially going out of range, then you think, oh, I should act here, and you kind of, I guess you're at that learning stage, and we're all learning, right? And in the sense that potentially we have to allow the hybrid loop to act upon and do its thing, but you know there may be cases why it might go really high if there's a candidate fault or whatever. But are you basically saying that sometimes you might look at the data, there's more data now, so it's kind of thinking, oh, maybe I should do something. The algorithm's maybe not doing it, so I'll step in a little bit. Is that right in thinking?
Yeah, and also like the flip of that as well, like seeing the flat lines and not wanting to ruin those flat lines.
Yeah.
And thinking, oh well, I'll just lie here. I'm just going to lie there. I'm not going to move. I'm not going to breathe. I'm not going to look a certain way because my blood sugar's going to go up and that'll go into the red and the flat line will be ruined. I think. I'm a little bit over it now because I have had a few bad days on HCL and they do happen. It isn't this kind of cue where it isn't. I don't see it as an artificial pancreas. I don't like that terminology of it. But data-wise, it's also readily there. I know Mo is I think Mo is a data guy. He likes his data, so he might have a flip on that as a positive. But to me, I can see myself becoming obsessive or like I'm checking all the time, checking clarity to check my time and range more often than what I would normally.
Yeah.
But that's more negative.
It's not at all negative. It's your lived experience. It's your personal opinion. I can totally get that. And let's bring Mo into that because I think you warmed them up there.
I was actually just reflecting on how interesting it is that we've both had a similar experience, but I would say at different places. So for me, that experience you described was how I felt pretty much the whole kind of 4 or 5 years when I was pumping, and then particularly with Libra before I got moved on to Dexcom. And for me, you're right, a lot of that was, so I work in data as a data analyst, and I was always felt incredibly overwhelmed. I had all of this data at my fingertips, like data was my job, I'm used to using information, but I couldn't get it to work. I couldn't get the flat lines. I couldn't make everything happen. And actually for me, the resolution for that was HCL. And since I've been on it, I found that actually I can just let everything go. I can just put it all down, kind of trust in the machine. And for me, it does work quite well. I think interestingly, I still get about the same time and range as I got before, which full disclosure is pretty good, but I don't get unicorns. I'm not 100% or anything like that. And I'm still not now. And I was thinking about this the other day and thinking about kind of whether I felt sad about that or not, or whether I felt like I was doing it wrong. And actually I realized one of the positives for me is that I've maintained the same kind of time and range on HCL that I had, but I reckon I'm thinking about it maybe 5% as opposed to 100% of the day. Before it would be all the time, and now I can go quite a few hours and suddenly kind of surface and go, oh yeah, I forgot, and I'll check and I'll be like, oh yeah, I went a bit high, but then it came down again, and then I was going a bit low, and then it came up again, and it's just been doing its thing on my desk while I've been working away. Yeah, and I think it's really interesting, kind of Laura, that for you, kind of the HCL actually is the gateway to maybe being too much. And I just had that same experience, but just in a really different place. I mean, it's always, your diabetes will vary, right? But it's always fascinating to find actually how it varies for different people.
Yeah, definitely.
I was going to say, before going on to hybrid closed loop, I was obviously checking more often and things like that. Even though I was on the 670, I was still finger prick and things like that. Then I switched over to T-Slim. And at first, the first couple of weeks, I was like, oh, do I trust it? Do I not trust it? And then once I got my confidence with the system, I was like, okay, yeah, no more finger pricking, no more checking. I'll only check if I beep now, or if I need to put carbs in, then I'll obviously have a quick glance at what my sugars are doing. But yeah, I found that. And I found that as well. With T-Slim, it may be just me, it may not just be me. If it's above 14, then it doesn't really work. Bringing me under 14, it'll just like flatline at 14. So I'll have to do manual stuff and things like that, but or just leave it for over when I go to sleep, and then when I wake up, it'll be fine. But it's just at first there's a lot to take in, but soon as calmed down.
And to add to that as well, I think obviously everybody is diabetes is methanol and blue, but there are also differences between men and women. So obviously with women, we have the influence of hormones that are playing all the time, every day, every hour. There's some changes, and to stay on top of it, it's more difficult. And this is documented. Remember also that all the systems are being tested on a group which are white, male between the age of 20 and 30. So if you do not fall into that category, you're not going to be very happy with your numbers to start with, because you don't reach 100%. I mean, I've been looking for 2 years. I think I had 2 unicorns, and I'm not chasing them. I've realized that works better for my peace of mind, because otherwise you get to focus on the data and you don't live, and you need to live. And I always refer back to that email where Parter Carr is quoting, the percentage and how well you're achieving, because it's actually printed and it is on my fridge, because we're humans. And there are so many things that can interact with your numbers. And we all know that, from the alignment of the moon, for if it's raining in Wales and it's sunny in Scotland, or, as a woman, if you're on your period, or, if you had an argument, if you are stressed. I mean, so many things are kind of coming into the combination of how to stabilize, how to stable blood sugar levels. You can't win. We are replacing a magnificent organ, and all your body works in synthesis. Ours is off balance. We are trying to remediate it, but we are kind of, that piece of paper you put under the foot of the table to ensure that it doesn't wobble. We're not perfect, but we're doing the best that we can. So, and you need to come to grips with that, I think. And everybody's different. You will take. For some of us, it goes very quickly and it's very easy to maintain. For others, it's a question of moments where everything's fine, I don't care, don't worry. And then others where you just kind of, oh my God, what are my numbers? Yeah, I think all of us have experienced some sort of burnout at some point to some various degrees. The thing is, you need to ride the wave and stay on top. And HCL is not going to fix that, sadly. It's going to simplify some things. Yes. And it's going to assist you, but again, it is a tool. It's not an answer.
I was going to say that I usually tweet that was when the hybrid closed loop, everybody was really hyped about it and excited for it, about it being rolled out more in England on the NHS. And I put a tweet out, I think, saying that it's definitely not a cure. It obviously helps the burden with diabetes for some people. Obviously, it can add more burden for some people because it's more data. But it's not a cure. It'll help manage your diabetes, but it's not going to magically make you not have to think about diabetes. You still got to think about it, but just a little bit less.
Fantastic conversation, guys. I'm literally nodding along here. It's a very empowering, honest conversation that we're all having here. Mo or Laura, just before we go on to the next question, was there any comments coming through on social media in terms of that question? What is the biggest advantage and disadvantage of the hybrid closed loop system that they use?
Sleep.
Sleep, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sleep. That's there's somebody's did I think he's commented just saying sleep. John. The greatest advantage for HCL for me is sleep improvement and always knowing what my levels are to be able to glance at my watch and see my levels. I need to intervene sometime, but having the information so readily available helps.
Amazing. Thank you so much, John. It's great. The community are also tweeting along tonight. Fantastic. Let's move on to question 3 out of 10. Right, let's get to the grips of the hybrid closed loop that you guys are using a little bit more specific now. And what key features do you think work really well for you on that particular hybrid closed loop? So I actually don't know much about all the different technologies, so it'd be interesting to see if there is any particular feature that you really like on it that helps you with your management. Who wants to kick that one off?
I guess. So with T-Slim, I think is being able to set different activities. So you get sleep and you get exercise. So if you sleep in, it'll stop giving you corrections, I believe, but still bring you back in range by increasing your basal if needs be. It may be the other way around, but yeah, that's like a lifesaver because I don't want it correcting or giving me too much insulin when I'm sleeping and then waking me up with a hypo. And with it working with G7 as well, I guess, with the Dexcom side of things, I guess with the G7, I can turn the alerts off for up to a certain amount of time. So it doesn't beep constantly if I'm high or low. I'll just mute it and leave my pump to where it needs to do. But it's the activity features that work best for me on the T-Slim, I think.
Brilliant. What about the other T-Slim guys? Mark and who else? Who else is on T-Slim? Laura and Tony.
I use the sleep mode. Again, it's for me the sleep mode is kind of belt and braces. It just makes sure that kind of nothing. It's just it makes sure that kind of nothing's going to kind of go up or down really, and it loosens the range a little bit, and so just adds a little bit more comfort. Would I need it if it wasn't there? No, because it's just as you can kind of set and forget your ranges, and it's all tweakable. But yeah, I don't use exercise, obviously, as you know.
Let's we'll come back to thanks, Tone. The rest of the guys on hybrid closed loop in a sec. Let's bring Wendy in a sec. I just wanted to go back to the last question. What is the biggest advantage and disadvantage of the Novo pens that you use? And what key features do you like and work really well for you? And then we'll come back to the hybrid closed loop section in a minute. Give the guys a couple of seconds to think. What about you, Wendy?
I think for me, it's about control. I feel as though I'm making those decisions. I'm deciding how much insulin I'm putting in.
Yep.
I'm deciding where I'm putting it. If that leg's a bit sore or I've got a bruise, I can move it around. I can put it in different places. And as a self-confessed control freak, me knowing how much I've put in rather than allowing the tech to decide how much it thinks I should have because I've eaten the carrot cake.
Yeah.
That's me. It's my choice.
So the power's in your hands basically to make that decision, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think I find it very difficult to relinquish that any control, quite frankly, but specifically something like that.
Yeah.
As somebody that still technically relatively new to this game, and I do wonder if the fact that I was diagnosed a bit older also means I've got a little bit more of a laissez-faire approach, if you like. I'm like, well, I've just drunk that bottle of beer and I've gone up to 14, but it'll be okay because it'll come back down again in a minute. And I think, that sort of bit of age and wisdom, I don't know, life experience means I'm less sensitive to those things. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and yes, some days I go, why have they done that? But because some days we all do that. But I think for me it is about the control.
Yeah. And what's still favorite key feature on your Nova pens?
Oh, I like the fact that if I forgot, when you when you do things as a matter of routine, and you do it in the morning and you don't really know whether you've done it or not. So I know I can go back and I can press the end and I go, oh yeah, I did give myself my basal insulin this morning. That's all right then, and move on.
And that's a great, isn't it? That the technology has evolved from syringes to disposable pens, catches as well, to now the smart pens that allow you to have the memory mode to enable you to check to see when you last injected, how much, or you can have the caps as well, can't you, if you're using disposable pens? And I just think that, for me, I've always described it as that bridge between the sort of normal injection pen and your pump and your hyperclosed loop, but it's that middle, it's that connection between, and it's a bit of tech in it, and it's a great feature, really, isn't it?
It is, and I'm a bit of a technophobe, really. I'm one of these people that walks past the photocopier and it beeps at them. So the idea that tech is responsible for all of that other stuff, might freak me out slightly. So I'm okay with this level of tech. The one thing that does get my goat a bit is the pens. I'm supposed to be able to scan, and sometimes the scan works and sometimes it doesn't. A bit like in the olden days when you had to scan your sensor. Sometimes it doesn't, and that gets on my nerves a little bit. But I don't use the scan for that reason. I don't use the scan, but I do know that I can just go, that's how much I did. I should have done more.
No, I totally understand that. I feel your pain there. Sometimes when the apps don't work quite well. Mark, I can see your hand there. You're following up on a point, and then we'll head to Mo from Omnipod 5's point of view of what key features he likes. Mark?
Sorry, I'm not unmuting myself. When you read the pens, one thing when I was on them, I used to use the Aviva AccuCheck Expert, and that used to have an onboard insulin, and so I was quite used to it when I went onto the T-Slim, having that on board. Do you have that kind of thing where it works out, yes, you've injected X amount of insulin, and it sort of like gradually shows how it depreciates over the time? Because I just didn't know if they'd put that yet in any of the software. Because I know my sugar does it for AccuCheck, but I didn't know if anybody else had that.
It's not on the Novo, on the Echo pens, certainly at this point.
Yeah.
But again, for me, that how much insulin is still floating around in my body will depend on what I've been doing and what exactly I ate. So sometimes my insulin might float around for 4 or 5 hours.
And again,
other times 2 hours, and I'm thinking, I probably need some more.
And again, everyone's different and whatever, but do you want that information, Wendy, from your point of view? Do you want to see that?
I don't think it necessarily gives me anything extra. I can see from my graphs what I'm doing, and if I'm going in the wrong direction, then I can do something about it. I know how long it is since I've injected. I'm going in the wrong direction. I can do something about it, or I'm going down too fast. probably need to do something about that as well. And I don't necessarily think that having the insulin on board, certainly for me at this point, adds anything to it. It becomes part of that too much data that Laura was talking about earlier.
Yeah. It's interesting, and that's great that we've got this perspective tonight. Thank you so much, Wendy. Mo, let's bring you in. What key features do you like about Omnipod 5?
It's kind of difficult to know without having tested some of the others. I think probably it's its simplicity, if I'm honest. I see a lot of kind of other people tweeting about stuff, and one of the misconceptions sometimes that people have about HCLs is obviously that they're completely hands-off, that they don't need any setup, that they're just plug and play. And that's not really the case.
No.
The better you know your own basal rates and that sort of stuff before, the better it's going to work. But I think the Omnipod 5 is the simplest in terms of settings that it just get going, and then after a few days it'll start to figure out what's happening, and then it'll keep calibrating over, I think, the next 3 pods. And that makes it pretty easy to get going, and it also makes it relatively bulletproof. The flip side of that is I would say that you probably can't get quite as tight control with the Omnipod 5 as you maybe can with other stuff, because just everything's got that bigger margin of error. But I'm a big fan of its simplicity, and just from a purely practical point of view, the user interface on the PDM, because it comes with a separate sized object, is really, really easy to use and incredibly simple. So I'm a big fan of that. Also, I'll just tag on because a few people have mentioned kind of activity mode. So the Omnipod 5 doesn't have a sleep mode. You just go to sleep with it. But it does have an activity mode, and I'm a very keen badminton player. I play a lot of badminton, which is a mixed aerobic and anaerobic sport. So obviously it can be a little bit challenging from a blood sugar point of view. And for a while, I didn't use the activity mode. And since I started using it, it is amazing. The Omnipod 5 one, I don't know kind of quite how they've got it to work so well. But it works really, really well.
And I assume that reduces your basals in that moment, right?
Yeah, it reduces your basal, it ups your target range, and it reduces the aggressiveness of the corrections, which, again, I think it might be the least aggressive system out there in terms of corrections. It's definitely one of the things that I wish it was a bit quicker at doing. But it does mean that during activity, it's actually really quite fast to pick up if it's going a little bit wrong. And if you tend towards being lower, it's incredibly sensitive to that kind of things.
Really, really interesting. Thank you so much, Mo. Hope that you guys are really enjoying tonight's chat. I can see people messaging and are definitely enjoying tonight's chat. Let's bring in Sarah, who is using Ipsomed, and Sean, DIY. From your perspective, what key features do you think really work well on your particular HCL?
So I really like, we've got an ease off and a boost on Ipsomed. So if you're doing activity, you can reduce your insulin delivery and leave that off for a while, so that would cope with any sort of activity. You can set that up for a 24-hour time period if you've been doing loads of activity. And if you're unwell, there's a boost one, so you can increase the amount of insulin that you're then having for up to kind of 24 hours. So it's quite flexible with how you use that as well. So I find that really, really good for day-to-day management of activity.
Fantastic, thank you. Go on, Ellie, as well, from your Ipsomed. Yeah, go for it.
Yep. I also find that it's got a couple of options for how you tell it that you've had food. And so you can tell it when you've had a hypo treatment. You tell it if you've had a meal or snack but you don't feel like doing a bolus. Or if you went hypo whilst you were eating, you don't do a bolus. You tell it that you had a meal and you had a hypo treatment, and then it will deal with it. And you can also tell it if you've had a slowly absorbed meal. And so there have been times where I haven't even done a bolus. I've just told it that I've eaten, and it's dealt with it using the basal. I think that is really great. I love that.
Yeah, that's a great feature, isn't it? Really interesting. It's so fascinating to hear all the different perspectives here from the different pumps and what you guys see the key features for you guys. Sean, what about you for DIY?
I guess again, this is where DIY is a little bit different. It's obviously less regulated, and so it can be more aggressive. Sarah will tell you my diet. I am a bit of a carb monster, so going high has always been a bit of a problem for me. And I can just set it and make it a little bit more aggressive. It's rather than just change the basil, my version of DIY will actually give mini boluses. So if it thinks I'm getting out of range, it can deal with it slightly more quickly rather than give me an increase over an hour, say. It can give me a shot of insulin right now.
Yeah. So
it basically means that it prevents the highs much better than I used to be able to do before I used the loop, and it also has an unannounced meal thing setting as well, which also means that if I'm at work and it's busy, and I do often do this, I just eat and then just completely forget about my bolus. It will prevent me from going as high as I would do ordinarily, because it will work out for itself that I've probably had some food and I haven't given myself any insulin for it. So again, it responds more quickly, so the highs are not so high.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Mo, Laura, any comments coming through on, thank you so much, Sean, and everyone for that amazing question. Any final comments coming through on the posts?
We've got Linda that's commented. I think she's in here. Just saying again on the slip really that she's using the tandem T-Slim with Control IQ, but saying that the exercise setting fails Linda. It doesn't work for Linda. So she's had to set up her own profile to run a lower basal rate during exercise. So maybe a bit of trial and error. One system works for one, it doesn't work for everybody. But yeah, thanks Linda for that comment.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's have a look at the next question, and maybe we'll try and get through this one a little bit quicker. How robust is the supply chain? So how easy is it to get orders? Do they arrive as scheduled? And how easy is it to deal with problems and failures? So if there is a problem that you have, can you get that replacement? So your pump, for instance, if that broke, is it easy to get a new replacement? Let's start with Sarah, and then we'll go to Alex, and then Ellie, and then we'll carry around. Go on, Sarah, you kick off.
Yeah, I had a pump failure totally. My pump totally died about a week and a half ago.
Scary.
And they sent a pump out. I was on Dexcom was still working, so completely low carb diet for the whole day. So it was back to basal and kind of like injections, but very easy. It was there for the next morning at 8:30, so really quickly replaced.
Brilliant, fantastic. It's great to have that reassurance, isn't it, that if the tech goes, then you can try and get your pump hopefully as soon as possible. Whereas I guess people like me and Wendy and other people who are injections, we may have more pens or backup cartridges or things like that, whereas your pump is obviously quite precious. What about you, Alex?
The thing with the HDR system, because it is integrated on Medtronic with Guardian 4, there is no interoperability. Sorry, that's a bit difficult for me to say. And so when I had a pump failure, it was on my first day on a holiday in Tenerife. And obviously, I didn't have another pump. What happened is that the casing of my pump was broken. And I wore my pump in the swimming pool and took the water, and it started beeping at me, probably like a Dexcom. And so obviously I had to take it off. My sensor is useless without the pump, so you have to take it off. I have backup MDI, thankfully, but I was desperate to get my hands on something that could give me my blood sugar levels, because I didn't want to prick my fingers every hour, because that's what we're kind of used to when you are on a system. So you, with a flash, you just check your phone. So really needed to get that sorted. And in Spain, obviously, I contacted Medtronic. They sadly couldn't send me a pump because I wasn't in Spain. So it was a week of hell, and I couldn't buy a Libra off the counter in Spain. They don't do that. So thankfully, we are a very wide community. You know, we are everywhere. And among the swimming pool at the hotel, there was this young Irish girl, and she was sporting a Libra. So I went to speak to her. And thankfully, a mum had packed a few spares. So they gave me one.
Wow. You can always find...
Yeah. So dancing in the world, you know, identify who they are, because you never know when you need some help, and they can help you. So that's that. Regarding Medtronic, that's one of their downfall in my view, because obviously if you, if the pump fell, you can't use your sensor. And regarding the supply chain, because I think that's one also part of your questions, it's a bit of a postcode lottery, I think. I don't know if that's the case with the other systems. I'm based in the West Midlands. I fall under Birmingham. The way I'm ordering my supplies is via the hospital. They always say to order quite in advance, but I'm touching wood. I tend to receive my supplies the following week. It is being delivered by UPS. Obviously, if there is a supply issue, more kind of for Medtronic not having delivered to the UK, which happened during COVID with Brexit, that was a bit difficult. But I'm lucky that I've never been strangled, in the sense that I've always managed via the skin of my teeth to last until I receive a next delivery.
Yeah. I have heard about some people who, when they go abroad and stuff, that when their pump breaks, they find it hard to get that replacement shipped over or things like that. It is really disheartening, and it's scary, isn't it? Because like we need this technology to look after us, and hopefully the system will get better. Alex, fingers crossed.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and when I came back from holiday following my pump failure, my pump was waiting for me at my neighbour's.
Of course it was.
So that was fantastic. And basically, they provided me with an envelope to return the other one. So I just had to transfer all of my settings into the new one. Obviously, the HCL doesn't work straight away. All the instructions are, I believe, within the manual. I think I contacted my DSN the next day just to sort myself out. But I was then back on the road pretty soon. So
it was definitely a nice present to get home to, I'm sure.
Oh yes, it was kind of miracle.
Yes.
I can't stop injecting myself. Sorry, Wendy, I know you still do, but for me, it's really, I've been pumping for so long, over 20 years.
Sure.
It was really hard, and just to remember everything, how do I calculate, what is actually my basal rate, because on a pump it's different from MDI, what do I need to put in my long-acting? It was, really a very stressful holiday, so I'm hoping one day I'll go back to Tenerife, because I really would like to enjoy the island.
Go enjoy the moment again.
Yes.
So let's bring Wendy in before we continue around the hydrochloride route. Wendy, how robust is your supply chain in getting a new Nova pen if you need, or if your cartridges, if you need new cartridges or whatnot? Is it easy to, how do you find the supply chain? Can you get one? Who do you get it from? Is it your GP or hospital? And if you have problems, is it quick to try and rectify that? Do you have a backup as well, a couple of backups?
Always.
Yeah.
I order through my GP. My prescriptions are all held at my GP, so I just go online, click the buttons, and the next day my prescription is at the pharmacy, which is at my GP's, and then I pick them up. I've only had one occasion recently, where because so many people are now on the Libras and the pharmacies are only allocated so many each month, and because you're rotating along 28 days kind of thing, so your time in the month moves along, and I need run out, so I was having to wait a few days. Now, in most cases, that's not an issue for me, but on the last time it happened, it was 3 days before I was going to Australia. So
oh no, it always happens. It always happens, doesn't it?
That said, I just went into the messaged the pharmacist, and I says, look, this situation, I'm going away. I cannot wait those 3 days. Do you know anyone that's got any? Can I take my prescription somewhere else? Blah blah.
Yeah.
And he rang me back an hour later, and he says, I've got one coming for you from one of the other pharmacies out of the area, and it'll be here in the morning. So I've never had a problem from that point of view.
Yeah.
And if I've had issues with my sensors, occasionally they fail or they're out of range or whatever, I've rung Abbott up, and I've never had a problem there either. They just go, okay, we'll send you a new one.
We'll send you a new one. Yeah.
I've never had any issues from that point of view.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever had an issue with Dexcom, and I remember the days on Libra, they would send you a new one out, and they got to a point where they stopped sending that package thing, so you'd have to return the old one. I think they just kind of don't worry about it.
I think it depends on what error message is coming. People decide whether they want it back or not. But I mean, they're pretty decent, and I think that's another reason why I'm sort of reluctant to move on to other systems, because this one works for me. It's pretty reliable. It tends to be in pretty decent range on my sensor for me. Check it now and then. But all of those things give you confidence in that system. And if you then have to move lock, stock and barrel to new systems, you've got to build up that trust again with new systems and everything. And I'm just like, do you know what?
Yeah.
I'm good.
And I hope that tonight's chat has been helpful in a way to just learn about the different perspective. I'm sure you know quite a bit anyway, but just hearing people's shared experiences, it's been quite powerful, really, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and sleep. I mean, sleep's quite important to me, and so that might be something that might persuade me otherwise.
I think we'll all join that parade. Laura, hello. I can see Laura's hand.
I can keep getting to turn the blinking light off. Just a few people have come through.
Go for it.
Just saying about, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's everything is so personal to the person.
Yeah.
Just both saying, I think Linda is on T-Slim, saying that T-Slim have improved, and that T-Slim have always been quite good. I haven't had that experience. I've had completely different. I had a pump that failed, and just a few backwards and forwards phone calls with them giving me some information about delivery out. I think I was about 72 hours without an insulin pump. I went into meltdown. That's the only way I can describe it. I didn't have any long acting in the house, which is hands up my own fault. Just complete lack of communication, but other times they've been fantastic. But that one scenario just shot my confidence with them a little bit. So hearing Linda and John say that they've had good experiences, giving me a bit more faith in them, that hopefully next time things might be a bit better. But yeah, a mixed bag.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. Brilliant stuff. Thank you so much, guys. Ellie, Sean, Mark, David, and Mo, did any sort of final thoughts from you guys on that question?
Just a quick one from me, and it's a kind of negative of hybrid closed looping in some ways, but I think it's something that the healthcare teams really need to take into account. Psychological effects of things going wrong and how you handle things going wrong. When you sort of get into living your life and not doing a great deal because the pump's doing it all, when something does go wrong, I go into blind panic. And I think we all have to kind of be careful to retain all those pre-looping skills that enable us to actually carry on living. And what do we do when things go wrong? I mean, like Sarah said earlier, if I'm without my loop for a day, then immediately I'm sort of panicking. And it's been so long since I've used those basic skills that I think I would be straight on the phone to my healthcare provider. So I think it's important to just give people training. I think when they have closed loop, perhaps to do refresher training once every year or something, so that we all retain those skills.
Absolutely, it's a valid point there, isn't it? Yeah, thank you, Sean. Side question, if you want to send emoji through to everyone that's listening, for the guys that are on pumps, do you have a injection pen at home, whether it's a disposable or a smart pen? Do you have a backup? If you don't want to answer it, don't have to. Feel free if you want to. Brilliant. Good response there.
Oh, sorry. Hi, I found one of the problems I had when it's not the pump that I've had issues with, and my supply chain has always been good. My hospital deals with all of it. It just appears on my front door every 3 months, which I love. But I had problems with my phone, with the app, with the CAM APS app, and it was over bank holiday, and the poor woman on the phone, I was saying, okay, so here's my problem, and I'm quite a tech person.
Yeah.
Bless her, she wasn't. And she was like, I'm really sorry, I don't understand what's wrong. And no one else is here. It's the bank holiday. I'm the only person manning the phones. And I was like, okay, but I've just updated my phone to the latest Android, and this seems to be, and that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to sort it out myself. So, which I found quite irritating, because
I imagine.
actually wanted some support, but they couldn't give it to me because they did not have the technical know-how when they were on the phones.
And surely there has to be someone. I know bank holidays and things like that, we all get that, right? But surely that's something that they need to ensure that they have to have someone who is available to offer some support, rather than just answering the phone and saying, oh, we'll take your contact and we'll give you a ring next week. It's, you know what I mean? It's very important to have that support. I guess if you needed further support, who do you think you could contact in that instance? Would you ring 111, or what would you recommend?
So in that particular instance, what I did was my pump was working and the Dexcom was working separately. So I downloaded the Dexcom app and got the Dexcom working on my phone. So I still had my blood sugars, and then I had the pump, and I just did the bit in between myself, which goes back to, you know, when I was a teenager, when I had a sensor and a pump, but they didn't talk to each other. And then I ended up having to buy a new phone because I couldn't jailbreak it and get it back to the previous Android, which was very irritating. But that did solve the problem, and I turned all the auto updates off. So in that situation, there was something I could do, and there was a solution, but I did have to come up with it myself, because the people on the phone lines just they weren't technical enough to know, and it wasn't like a problem with the settings in the app. It was a problem with the like the actual back end technology.
I think that could be a problem that a lot of people have. I know that when Apple did an update to the iOS, I got a message from Libra saying, be careful not to update because we haven't fully tested our systems with some of the new modes that there are on the Apple on iOS, and this is going to be one of the problems for diabetes tech. And I think the providers, so Apple and Google, who does Android, need to be making health app people fully aware of their new software, so they can put in updates for when, so people aren't left like Ellie was. I know, because I've heard of it so many times, like when it is something that has to be. I was just going to answer what you said about how keeping a pen and what have you. I've just been uploading all my bag for DUK, and one of the things I've been just getting out of the fridge was replacement insulin cartridge for my Nova Pen 6 and Toshiba pen, just in case anything does go wrong with my T-Slim. It hasn't touched my gear yet, furniture, because it's definitely probably not wood, but you know what I mean with that.
Absolutely, yeah. Mo?
I was going to say, when there is issues, so usually if like a Dexcom goes wrong, I've got like spares, or I've got insulin here just in case I don't have any long active. Maybe I should have to get some of those because it's not on my prescription. As soon as I switched over to a pump, they took off my long active for some reason. So I do need to get that added back on. So fingers crossed for the time being as a break. But with T-Slim, I think as well, they would just send out a new pump as soon as they can. I know my screen cracked online, or I thought it was my screen, but it turned out to be a screen protector.
Yeah.
And they sent on it, but no, they did try charging me for a new screen protector and advised me that I can buy a screen protector off Amazon, but they sent some out to me for free, thankfully. But any issues with like Dexcom or things like that, I just refer back to going getting a Libra until they can send me one. I'm lucky that my chemist will just give me one over the counter if needs be, and just do a prescription by GP for me for the Libra. But yeah, not everybody is that lucky, I guess.
Yeah.
I think
Go on, Mark.
I was going to say, one thing, whether you're like me, just on a standalone pump or on hybrid closed loop, the NHS app, if you don't order something on your repeat prescription within 4 months, it goes off the bit where you can just select it, and you have to put it in text to ask for it, which can be fun because you've always got to keep some pen cartridges and some long acting in, really, and that's what I was told. And it's just remembering every 3 to 4 months to order them so they don't disappear.
But then potentially you've got like a right stock at home then, isn't it? And maybe something you can speak to your GP to say, look, I don't need to be ordering this every 3-4 months, so unless obviously the insulin expires or whatnot, but otherwise you're going to have a right stock in your fridge, aren't you?
I think you do, and I think this is something that, and I know we've talked about it online, and Bath has been involved in it. It needs the people that do the app and what have you, and put this logic in place. So they just say, well, if you need it, write it on the. You should just be putting a note to your GP that you need them, and they're going to go, well, what is it exactly?
Yeah.
You're going to have to. They're going to have to search for it.
I can see.
Sort of like,
I can see Amelia on the call, so she might be able to reply back to that. But yeah, it's something maybe to look at for sure. Let's bring in Mo for our last bit. Mo?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I just thought I'd chuck in the Omnipod experience of supply lines and then a quick note about phones, I suppose. The Insulet supply lines are really good. And also with Dexcom, we've covered they're really good. And the same as, I think it was Ellie, whoever said that their stuff just appears kind of every 3 months on the doorstep.
Yes.
That's very much, kind of what happens to me. Sometimes I'd like to be able to check that it is going to appear on the doorstep, but so far so good. And whenever I phone them,
do you not get you don't get an email to say it's coming or anything, no?
No.
Oh. I do.
I'm aware of.
No.
You can't. I'll translate back in a sec, Claire. Can anyone else? Can everyone else hear Mo?
Can you hear Mo?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I
I'll transfer back in a minute to translate back.
I'll
Summarize.
use my normal words. But yeah, I just wanted to mention on the phone thing. It's one of the, I think, it's one of the underrated aspects potentially of having a pump that exists either like separate to your phone or as a like a PDM like the Omnipod one does. And I think it really it's something that comes down to personal risk kind of appetite. And if you are someone who is more comfortable having more redundancy in your devices, then actually I think that's a really important thing to notice. And some of the hybrid closed loops will give you that. And some of them give you a little bit less of that. And some people are comfortable with that. I'm really not, like I said, it's just personal risk appetite, and they're all trade-offs from what you get. But for example, with the Omnipod handset, I mentioned in the training room to both my DSN and also the rep from Omnipod, that you can actually use the handset in a pinch as a Dexcom reader, because it gets the reading from your Dexcom every 5 minutes and puts it on screen.
Yeah.
So if your phone goes down or if your phone runs out of battery, you obviously don't get a separate reader like you do with a Libra. If you've got your finger stick with you, stuff fine. But you can actually also use the PDM device in a pinch. It's not great for immediate, but it does give you some idea of where you're going. And everyone in the room went, oh yeah, we hadn't really thought about that. So sometimes I think when you're thinking about HCLs and just the future of technology, working out for you personally where your comfort zone is in that, I think is actually a really important part of the choice making if you do have a choice that you can make.
Absolutely, 100%.
I agree.
Go on, Alex.
Sorry to interrupt. And also the fact that I was also covered by somebody else is the app working on your phone. I mean, with Medtronic, I had to invest into a new phone to ensure the app was working on it. Before that, I was just managing on the pump. So, you know, it depends what you can afford as well. Even if you are lucky enough to get your HCLs through the NHS, managing it on a day-to-day basis, you may need to do some personal investment. So that's also something to bear in mind.
I was going to just throw in as well with, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but with T-Slim, they said since it was released in the UK, I know America has it, that we'd be able to bolus from our phones and things like that, but which is really exciting and great and things like that. But at the moment in the UK, it's not available because of how it gets approved and things like that. But everybody wants it to make it easier for us just to have a glance on our phones at our sugar readings, and not only that, we're able to then just bolus. We never have to pull a pump out and things like that. Just a waiting game, unfortunately, but fingers crossed. It'll be sometime this year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe.